else, Ty?
No.
Okay, so I guess I'll call the regular meeting of the Kent and the Wetlands Commission to order at 7:03 PM. And for the record, to show that regular members, myself, Lynn Warner, Paul Yeagood, Ken Johnson are here. Alternates Anthony and Jeff are here, as well as our land administrator Ty Kern, and our clerk Donna Hayes is here, as well as various guests, right? Whoops, are we missing anyone? Somebody just fall off?
Hmm.
Ken Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
So we need Ken back on.
You still have a quorum if you seat the alternates.
Can we do
Okay,
that without a quorum?
yeah, should I make a motion
Can we
now
do that?
to,
Well, that's what I'm asking. Can we do that without a quorum?
Seat the alternates? Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
okay, I'll make a motion to elevate Anthony to voting status for this meeting.
And I would also add Jeff's if we don't know if Ken's coming back.
And, okay, and Jeff.
Okay, thanks. I'll
I
second.
think you have to second it, Lynn.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Paul. All right, so welcome Anthony and Jeff. And did everybody have a chance to read the minutes of December 22nd?
Yes.
Were there any corrections, questions?
Well, I'm not as good as Marge. The only thing that stuck out to me, which I don't agree with, is under written communications. It says the commission accepted Mr. Starr's email, and I would rather say the commission received Mr. Starr's email, because I don't accept
The
his email.
statements?
Yes.
That's a fair comment, actually. Can we make that change, Ty?
Yes, of course.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Back.
Welcome
Well,
back.
I dropped out for about 2-3 minutes there. I don't know what happened. And I can't hear you on my headset, so let me fiddle with this.
Can you hear us now? Okay, well, we can move ahead because we do have a quorum.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as written with the one change as noted.
Thank you. Anybody second?
Sure, I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Ken, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know why it's dropping out, but
Okay.
I'm back with you.
Okay, great. Did you just vote in favor of the minutes with the one change that Paul made?
Yes, I did. I vote yes.
Thank you. Okay, so that's unanimous, I think. And one here's Ken Dietz. Okie dokie.
Okay, do we also need a motion to add 5B to the agenda?
We do. Thank
So
you.
moved.
And could you add to that the under written communication, the Housatonic Railroad Group to that
So
motion?
moved.
Thank you. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Ah, abstain? No. Thank you, Paul. Okay, so we're gonna move on to old business, and Ty's got an update for us on application 1335-23.
Yes, so Stephen Abadi contacted, we spoke with him today, and he'd like to table this matter. He didn't have all the information that had been requested at the last meeting for a complete application. Additionally, he's been working with the state and the Army Corps of Engineers trying to determine whether applications are needed with them. The state says yes, but he doesn't necessarily agree. So he's working further with his engineers, attorneys, surveyors, and trying to sort through all of that. And he more or less said that if they have to go through with the application with the Army Corps and the state, he'll probably withdraw this application for the bridge because the cost is just too much going through that process. So he'll
What
come.
would be his alternative?
So that's what he's working with his engineers to determine what those are. So at this point, long story short, he's asking us to table this application for now. And then by the next meeting, hopefully we'll have an idea of what direction this is going in.
Okay, thank you. And did you do the site visit with you did?
I
So-
did.
Okay,
Yeah, so the gentleman from the Fisheries Division was there, met with Stephen Abate. I was there, and Maria Grace from the Conservancy was there as well. He, also just talked a little bit about the process with the state and that application. He gave some suggestions on, what he would think would be appropriate for the area.
Hmm,
So
okay. So that means the materials that we received for the application and the application, all of that will just be tabled to next month's meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts you want to add, or are we ready to make a motion to table application 1335-24? And if we
I have-
are,
yeah, I have nothing more.
okay. Thanks, Ty. So we need a motion to table application 1335-24 to the next regular meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken Johnson. I need a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, thanks, Ken Dietz. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed or abstention? Okay, very good. Motion carries. So we'll move on to new business. Application 1335-24, Karen Pittleman. Or Michael, I guess Michael, I'm not gonna, is it Bazuski?
Yeah, Bakzewski.
Bazuski?
Good evening.
Good evening. So you're here to represent Karen in this
Yes.
application. And I just wanted to verify that you actually work for the organization that we got this email introduction from, correct?
Yes, I'm the owner founder of New England Pollinator Gardens LLC.
Great, thank you. So do you want, Ty, is there anything you want to say before I ask Mike to just kind of give us an overview?
I think he'll do a pretty good job of reviewing what his plans are. It's within the wetland area where the work will occur, so that's why it's before you.
Okay. So Mike, why don't you just walk us through what you're proposing and the timeline?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So per our permit application, what we're looking to do, it's really a two-step process. The first is removal of invasive species, and as your commission, I'm certain is well aware and informed of invasive species, and in this area primarily mugwort. There's some Japanese honeysuckle, in addition to um, garlic mustard. There's a lot of invasive species pressure in this area of the Pittleman residence. What this plan calls for is the removal of those invasive species. Mechanically, we don't use herbicides, we don't use any chemicals. And then what we're going to do is strategically replace those areas that have been disturbed with the removal and install a blend of native trees, shrubs, perennials, or herbaceous layer native grasses, with the goal of actually not only creating a beautiful landscape in this area, native landscape, but also adding really crucial habitat for birds and wildlife that will allow support of them throughout the seasons, not only in the the spring and summer when everything's in bloom, but also create habitat in the winter and these cold days like tonight where finding berries and forage high in fat content could really support some of our threatened and also endangered species in this area. Part of the plan also, if you refer to the map that we attach of the proposed area, um, will also be we'll be removing conventional turf grass that one isn't providing any ecological value. So that area is going to be restored with that native habitat. One of the primary outcomes we hope to achieve as well is also this landscape having significant functional value. It will be able to filter stormwater runoff, which actually is coming from two culverts and then actually exits the easement, traverses the Pittleman residence into Cobblebrook. So we could slow the stormwater velocity and also let this area filter that groundwater. We could potentially even reduce some of the contaminants or runoff from debris from also entering Cobblebrook, or at least slow it down.
I've got a kind of a basic question in that I'm looking at two different maps. And I'm trying to figure out exactly where the work is going to be.
Yeah, so if you refer to, it's the map that we refer to as in item 9. Yes, please see survey map attached. We had attached a map with ours, and then that's the map I'm referring to. The second map that is before the commission this evening was provided by our surveyor, Gary Hawk, and that's the contour map. So we're referring
It shows the
to
contours.
that
Okay.
first map.
Yeah. So can you, so the first map it's the area shaded in green that you're talking about?
That's correct.
And how long along and what is this along? Is this actually along the brook? Or
Yeah,
what?
this is actually along Cobblebrook, just off the stone wall. So this is right off the road. It drops, the elevation drops slightly with the contour. Um, Not too steep. It's a pretty gradual decline. There's a lot of bedrock in that area as well. Um, so
Where does the brook enter the property and leave the property? That's what I'm
uh,
confused about.
yeah, Cobblebrook. This Cobblebrook enters from underneath. I can pull up the map. Bear with me.
Maybe if you did pull up the map, it'd be easier to see because I don't see the actual brook on here. And it might be labeled, but my map is really small. And
Yeah,
my eyes are really tired after a day of computer.
I don't know if I could share. Would I have a permission to screen share
You should.
with the commission? Great. Okay, I'll share. So Cobblebrook actually enters and traverses the property under Cedar Mountain Road, aka Route 341.
Mm-hmm.
And that traverses through the property.
Mm-hmm. And where's the work that you want to do?
Yep, so that work is in this easement, in the drainage easement location here, right off. This is Cobblebrook Road, and our
Okay.
work is slightly, really only half of the drainage easement is in the wetland. I believe this is the upland review area, Ty, if I'm not mistaken, and this
Mhm.
is where the bulk of the work would be performed.
Thank you. So how far away from the brook are you in that area? You're in the wetlands, I can tell, but how far away from the brook are you right there?
Yeah, we are from this location, and depending on the contour we're using, we are approximately the exact footage on this map. I don't believe I have that data point.
Well, we kind of need that in, in order for the application to be complete. We do have to show that distance. Do you have a guesstimate?
Yeah, let me refer to a soil map, and I think I should be able to pull that data point.
I would say, just looking at your scale,
I'd say like 150 feet, maybe.
maybe 1 inch is about 40 feet. So maybe it's a little closer. Am I reading
Yeah,
that right?
based on I guess based on the turn in Cobblebrook itself, I think the number would vary slightly.
So if a 1 inch equals about 40 feet, we're talking maybe 60 feet at the closest point.
Yeah, at the closest point. At the closest point to the river, I would say we're actually well outside of,
I would say about 60 or 80 feet.
yeah, about 50 yards from Cobblebrook. Could share my screen, and I'd be more than happy to, if we need to revise the map to provide that data point to the commission. Certainly happy to do that.
Yeah, we do. What we're looking for is the distance of the area of disturbance
Yeah.
to the actual brook itself.
Yeah,
You're
and I think,
within the wetlands for about half of the work, maybe.
right. So I think from this data, this point here would be the closest we would be
Yeah.
really would be working in
Right
to
there.
this point of Cobblebrook.
Yeah,
So we could get that data point for the
Okay.
commission.
okay. Okay. Now, have you provided a timeline of what you're gonna do first, second, third, that kind of thing?
We have not provided a timeline.
A kind of yeah, I don't mean timeline, I'm sorry. I mean more like a progression of first you're going to remove X, what are you gonna do with the
Sure.
plants? Are you gonna be excavating any dirt? Then what are you gonna do as you start your replanting plan? What goes in first, second, third? And then how long will the whole thing take?
Yeah. So just to verbally provide the commission with what that trajectory looks like. Um, with the commission's approval that this winter, what we would do is look to actually um, begin a first pass of complete invasive species removal in this area as early as April 2024. We could start to see what's actually emerging that early as well. And what mechanical controls we would need to deploy. Certain invasives like mugwort that also spread via rhizomes, they also spread via seed. We want to be very cognizant of limiting disturbance so that way those invasive species do not spread further with any unnecessary disturbance to the soil. So our trajectory for at least the tree planting and shrub planting scope would be spring, specifically in that weather permitting in New England, right? And in Kent, planting would commence ideally April, May, and really lead up with warm season grasses, little blue stem, big blue stem. We could begin to plant those out also throughout the summer, weather permitting as well. So if the commission would prefer a tighter timeline, we could certainly accommodate that. But of course, our sourcing comes into play a little bit. We're depending on some of the sizes of the specimens that we would source, their availability, and also making sure they're not, we're not sourcing them from Midwest. We're sourcing them locally, so they're actually acclimated. They have not only a higher survival rate, but also a could potentially be ecotypes and thrive and provide more biodiversity because they're being sourced from a local ecotype source as well. So ideally, this project, the bulk of it would be the front end, the planting. Of course, invasive species removal, it's not one and done. I'm sure we've all removed invasive species in our yards, and it's an ongoing battle. It needs to be monitored and certain species addressed at the right time of year. So vigilance and monitoring is going to be a part of this. I can't say that will be done, unfortunately, in by August 2024, but it will be an ongoing scope of this work.
How do
So,
you dispose
there-
of the removed invasives?
Yeah, so it depends. We don't have Japanese knotweed on site, for example, where Japanese knotweed, I would only recommend its incineration because it could spread so easily. Uh, and we've seen all too often in other municipalities that even people of good intentions, but they don't know it could spread through very small pieces, and then all of a sudden a riverbank's covered in Japanese knotweed. So ideally incineration in some aspects. If you have woody invasives and Japanese barberry, for example, if we remove that by the stump or remove clusters of that, even bittersweet, and you pile it on site, it could break down and over time add nutrients back to the soil, provide some temporary habitat, and actually not spread. But anything with seeds, Commissioner, I would recommend removing those off site. And what we would do is make sure that any subcontractor we work with or any site we bring it to, we have the protocols in place where those seeds aren't going to fly out on the back of a pickup truck tarp and end up covering it on a hillside or the side of the road somewhere else.
Ty, I know it's changed and I'm not clear. Once the work is started under a permit, how long does the applicant have to finish?
So if there's no other permits associated with it, and that would be in this case, it's 5 years.
Okay. So theoretically, you could be monitoring and restoring without having to get another permit over the next 5 years, but we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Absolutely. And I think that's we appreciate that. Landscapes change, our ideas change. There could be hope not, but there could be a hurricane in 2026 that takes down the existing cottonwood or some other species, and that would change the trajectory of the site. And I think being able to be creative and being able to adapt to those changes, that's why we monitor, and that's why I think deploying ecological and sustainable practices, especially in this wetland area, will be a work in progress and not really require a solid master plan as if you were developing a formal landscape around a pool or a patio area. We really want to work with Mother Nature in this site and not against her by any means.
Yeah. So it sounds like we need kind of a more articulated description in writing of what you're planning to do, understanding that circumstances may change, weather conditions, what you actually discover there may change as you move ahead, and understanding that, you may be modifying. Nothing is written in stone, but generally what you plan to do when you plan to do it, and a sequencing of events would be helpful, plus the actual kind of locations to the distances from the brook. Is there anything else, Ty, that is missing from the application?
No, I thought it was in pretty good shape.
And so what other questions? Well, Mike is here. Do Ken and Jeff and Paul have?
I have, go ahead, Paul.
No, this is Jeff. I just could you expand a little bit on what options are included in the mechanical removal?
Sure, Commissioner. So mechanical removal, when I refer to mechanical removal, I first really, what I mean by that is hand removal, hand tools primarily. Probably 90% of the work would be using pruners, um, actually going there and being very selective with removal. There's some existing American hazelnut. There's some existing witch hazel on site. We want to be very careful not to clear cut and not remove anything that uh, is already on site. And if we open it up, remove some invasives and create more opportunity for those existing native shrubs to grow and expand, that's such a value add. And that's what we want to encourage. There may be some invasives on site, where if we have, some autumn olive or some very deep rooted invasives, we may need to utilize a smaller rubber tire tractor, where we could get into the site and remove it at the root. Again, not doing that to create unnecessary disturbance and damage, but to be economical and strategic in that approach, where if we get a tractor with a backhoe on and remove that root in its entirety, we actually could plant out a native tree potentially, depending on what we select in that same exact location. So we wouldn't have to dig in another area and create unnecessary disturbance. Did that provide better lens into approach?
Yes, I think that's great.
Thank you.
I have a question about the grass removal. You said there are grasslands that you plan to replace?
Sure. So, like many of our properties, we have had, in traditionally this site going back to some of the aerial photography from as far back as 1934, it has always been hayed. And a lot of that hay, it's not a thriving native meadow today. Maybe one time it was covered in little blue stem and in Indian grass and other really important native species, but today it's not. It's primarily cold season grasses that really aren't doing much by creating the biodiversity we want to create and really put the site's trajectory towards that. So the removal of grass, there are a few approaches. So there's solarization, where silage tarping could be the site could be mowed very low. You could deploy silage tarping, put some sandbags on top, and over time, the thought is and the approach is those root systems would be weakened without going in and tilling the area multiple times with every emergence of new invasive species. Uh, the area is a little too large to deploy something like cardboard. They call it lasagna mulching, cardboard mulching. It's a little too large for that per se. But I wouldn't necessarily advocate for tilling the area. I actually think the bedrock is too high and it could create a lot of damage to equipment. But also, I just don't think it's the right approach for this area, especially with the slope. What we want to be cognizant of any removal, including any grass removals, making sure we have the right erosion controls in place. And what we've deployed over time have been primarily erosion control products that are more sustainable. We use coir logs a lot, which are made of coconut fiber. Those break down over time. So if we're on the bank of a stream, this case we're not, but in the application of the area where we want the grass removed, straw wattles, I think would be certainly appropriate. There's not going to be a significant amount of erosion from that grass removal because we're not removing the turf like a turf cutter per se. We're just degrading the existing cold season
I
non-native
see.
lawn.
About how much area are we talking about on this grassy area?
Yep. So in that area, we are looking at about it's approximately 18 by 20. about 2,600 square feet.
2,600 square feet. Okay, that's, and the grasses that you plan, what will it be? A lawn when you're through, or
Now, what we're looking to create is actually a multi-dimensional native landscape. So we'll have an understory layer of native trees. Under that layer, we will have smaller shrubs, and then we'll have a herbaceous native perennial layer.
I see.
I could share the commissioner, if you just have a moment, I could share um, a concept just to breathe a little life into some of the planning of what we could strive for.
Okay, I think you've answered my question anyway. Thank you.
Absolutely.
But that schematic would be great to share with the commission and make part of your application.
We'll do. I'll give the commission if you don't mind, a brief
Oops.
apologies. I can't see the top bar here. There we go. So what we're looking to really do is create um, multi-dimensional habitat. So we're really creating this continuity between the ground layer all the way up into the canopy. And then this will also help to really create the biodiversity. If anyone's read or listened to Doug Talmy when we talk about creating uh, biodiverse habitats, we're looking at all those really important layers. And with this deploying a landscape this way, we don't have a depiction here, but you think about some of these root systems where conventional lawns may be 2 to 2.5 inches. Some of these native species, especially the grasses, big blue stem, that root system could grow downward almost 10, 11, 12 feet in some instances. So you think of big blue stem's ability to slow and filter stormwater and also stabilize a bank for erosion control compared to conventional lawn. Can also look beautiful throughout all seasons of the year. I'm going with the big blue stem over the conventional turf grass. I'd be more than happy to share this with the commission upon the next submittal.
Okay, now in order to maintain that multi-layered canopy and habitat, does this require constant maintenance?
Now, and that's the beauty of high ecologically functioning landscapes. They don't require maintenance. Uh, truthfully, we're from the onset, we're picking native plants that have thrived in Connecticut for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And in this area of Kent specifically, we're looking at the microclimate. It could be a colder area with some of the hills, especially around Seeger Mountain Road. But also we're down in a little bit of uh, could also be a little bit of a warmer area down by Cobble Brook itself. So we're getting a lot of sun from eastern exposure in the morning on this bank, and then in the afternoon we're getting a lot more shade. So we're deploying the native plants, trees, shrubs, and again that herbaceous layer that will thrive in these conditions. So it doesn't need constant water. It doesn't need fertilizer. It doesn't need unnecessary inputs that, one, costs a lot of money, and two, create a lot of they're just unnecessary. So when we talk about creating a sustainable landscape, less is really more, and it begins by picking the right plants for the right place.
So when you resubmit additional materials, can you mark up the map that we've been looking at to identify the outer limits of where you're gonna be working?
Sure.
That'd be great. And it sounds like you don't anticipate exposed soil generally as you go through this.
No, and the goal is also planting densely enough where we're not putting down, maybe the first season we'll put down mulch if we're using some smaller plugs or 1 gallon plants. The goal is to use that mulch just once for weed suppression, organic weed suppression the first year. And as these plants grow, you're actually no longer going to need that input and over time, as they grow in and they come into stride, they're also going to compete against any non-natives or invasive species that may be in the seed bank. So um, again, those inputs are reduced, but also um, the disturbance is very limited.
So the only thing I'm really trying to get a sense of is kind of, again, what you're doing in the staging of what you're doing, and also whether or not there'll be an open wound of, open soil, and we get a deluge of rain and it, just erodes tremendously. It sounds like there won't be opportunities for that, but if you could clearly state that as you put together your kind of staging plan, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions from the commission at this point?
I was just gonna ask, can you supply a planting list of the species you're gonna be
Absolutely.
using?
Good point. Yeah. Even though there may be some variation in what you get, the kinds of things you're looking at and will prefer to plant would be that's a great idea.
Absolutely. And what I'll do,
I lost-
Commissioner, what I'll do is I'll list those from trees all the way down to the grasses, so that way you could really have, you
That'd
don't
be
have to
great.
jump around and read Latin. You'll have a nice roadmap.
That would be great. Thank you. Ken is back again, Ken Johnson. Any other questions from Jeff or Ken Dietz?
Any, I may have missed this, but any erosion control measures, silt fence, anything like that during the, I guess the gap period after you eradicate the
Yeah,
invasives?
so there actually is some straw wattles. They're used commonly in this application. If you're, I don't assume you're familiar, but straw wattles are just that. They're straw. They're wrapped in plastic or biodegradable fiber, and once they're staked, they slow stormwater. They don't stop it completely. Uh, if if in some of the areas, like if we're doing some tree planting, and like last summer we're looking at one of wettest springs on record, and there might be a risk for more water coming out of exiting the drainage culvert over the easement area. We could deploy foyer logs, which are a lot more denser, and slightly excavate down maybe 4 to 6 inches just to lock those in place. There's a lot of rain. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to necessarily disturb the soil any more than we have to at the time of planting. Um, uh, and if we were dealing with more of a slope, we would probably use some sisal netting. Um, but I don't think it's necessary um, for much of what we're doing, because
So if you
the
can
slope really isn't that steep.
okay, so if you can identify the erosion, what your
Sure.
erosion control measures are and what you would deploy prior to an unusually heavy storm and where. But again, it doesn't sound like you're gonna have a lot of open soil at any given time.
No, in part of what I hope to share with the commission too, because we think 5 years is a long term for long time for a permit, but if we're looking at looking at how the site also reacts to what we're doing, I think that's really important. So what I think it may also be considered in just to share this perspective, rather than removing all of the conventional turf grass, we only remove maybe 500 square feet, and we plant that year. The following year, we could plant another 500 square feet and actually see, almost in an experimental format, how that site is responding to what it is we're planting and what it is we're doing. So we don't have this massive area that's been excavated per se, uh, and for whatever reason it fails, whether it was a bad year for plugs that we sourced, or we just got a ton of rain. We could be very strategic in how we actually restore the site.
Yeah, and we definitely want to avoid erosion in a heavy rain. So we want to make sure that whatever you're doing is going to protect the watercourse and wetlands around, even in the absence of knowing that a full rain is coming. That doesn't make, in other words, we want to be protective before the fact, not after the fact or as the fact is happening, right? So
Absolutely.
the extent to which you can articulate that and provide that additional information and also locate it on the map would be great. Any other questions? Okay. Ty? No, you look like you had a question. Okay, well, we've asked for a lot of additional information. It sounds very thoughtful and very wetland, responsive and friendly. But there's some basic things that we need to have for the application and some additional things that we want to have. So appreciate your taking the time to walk us all through it. And what we'll do is table this application to the next regular meeting, assuming that you provide us with all the additional information and Ty feels like it's a complete application, we'll be able to take action then at that meeting in February.
Great. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't. I just want to say, thank you for your work. I know it's a lot of time and for any community to be engaged, but inland wetlands. I haven't served on inland wetlands before, but I have served on other public boards and commissions, and it's a lot of great work that goes unnoticed. So thank you for what you guys do.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your efforts here. Okay, we'll look forward to seeing you in a month.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay if you want, but that's totally up to you. We need a motion to table this application.
I'll make a motion to table application 1335-24 to the next regular meeting.
Thanks, Paul.
Second.
Who seconded?
Second,
Okay, Ken Dietz and Ken Johnson, I think Ken Dietz was first there. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed or abstention? Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, moving on, we have application 1336-24. John Slowak. Did I screw that up? Slowak?
I think it's Slowick.
Slowick. Thank you. Anybody here for the applicant?
Maria Hamilton is
Oh.
to represent.
Okay, great. And Ty, do you have any comments that you want to share before we turn it over to Victoria?
Sure. Yeah, I was informed that some work had been taking place over at 111 Gear Mountain Road. You might remember this property a little bit from April. Cynthia Rabinowitz was called to the area with me for another issue, and then this driveway that had been an ongoing problem also got rolled into her report, and she had given an opinion regarding, what had been occurring with the water coming down the hill and washing out this driveway. So anyways, it appears that, the water struck again with, everything that's been going on with the rain and the snow. And they took action without a permit to save their driveway. So they're in now. I reached out to Mr. Slowick and, he wants to make sure that he does the right thing. So he is, was urged to come in as soon as possible with a permit. So it may not be 100% complete. This all took place within the last couple of days, but he did the best he could to get me information he could. I think that this is not a solution, an overall solution to the problem that he's been enduring for years, but I think he's had a couple engineers involved and Cynthia was involved as well. So anyways, they're here before you just to talk about what they've done and maybe what their future might be.
Okay, thanks. So Victoria, why don't you
Right.
walk us through what you want to do?
Right, and just so I am married to the guy, so I'm not a professional like actually a very interesting conversation before, and I just want to note that Wendy Murphy's here as well, who I think brought the topic up.
Hi, Wendy.
So I'd like to confess up front that we did this, and it's not an excuse. I guess we should have known, but we didn't, that we should go to wetlands. And again, this is not an excuse. It's just, it wasn't a wetland before we fixed our driveway. It was the Olson's field. So I apologize. I am here to answer any questions about a hastily put together application. I'm sure you have many other things you'd like us to add, so I'm here to answer questions.
Well, why don't you tell us what you did and what you want to do?
Oh, I'm sorry. So just for you guys, we're at 111 Gear Mountain Road. So Wendy's to our south, Millie Olson's to our north. And we have a right of way between their properties to get to our property, which is sort of a lollipop in the back. Is that sort of okay? And our driveway deteriorated some years ago and we replaced it, and then part of it fell in, like there was a hole underneath, there was like a 3-foot hole, and we had the people in there said, oh, we must have crushed the pipe that went there when we did it. But they looked for the pipe and they did not find the pipe. They said, well, there should have been a pipe. We don't know what happened. Maybe it disintegrated. So we asked Wendy if we could put a pipe in, and Wendy said no. And her reasoning was that it goes to a pond. So it's the field. There's a pond right along the south side, and there's the field on the north side. And she said, that's a pond that my boys swam in. I don't want chemicals from the Olsons to come into my pond. It will ruin or harm the value of my property. Legitimate, they don't happen to be farming it, but Wendy said, you never know, they could sell it someday and somebody else could farm it. Okay. She had suggested that we go to the pipe that runs along the street. So we called an engineer and he said, well, fine, if you can get water to flow uphill. It's not a steep grade, but it is upgrade, so that wasn't going to work. The only other place it could go is to the stream. So we dug a trench to the stream, and I apologize. I didn't realize that we should have come to you. Again, it wasn't a wetland until we fixed our driveway.
Okay. So the trench is there,
It is.
and what are you proposing to do with the trench now?
The trench has stones in it, and then we were going to cover that with dirt. But we're certainly, and let the grass grow back. It's sort of the road there is the old stone fence that would have separated the properties back when everybody was farming. So there's sort of the stone fence, dirt of a couple feet, our driveway, and we put the trench along there. But if you want us to do something else, we can do something else.
Well, I just wonder if the trench is the right thing or if it shouldn't be more of a like a rain garden or, I don't know, something that will actually hold water and then let the water diffuse toward the stream instead of just dump right into it. Who else have you had look at who made the suggestion that you put the trench in?
I wish I could tell you which one. I guess we've had 3 or 4 engineers and people who do the driveway in over time. I think my husband has it in there. Honestly, I don't know. We've been dealing with this for like 4 years and the pond just keeps, this is not an occasional pond
Mm-hmm.
now in Millie's Field. This is a permanent pond.
So in Mr. Slowick's letter, he notes that he consulted with Betty, Bill Goble, Brian Neff, Pat Hackett. And they all suggested the pipe. And I think that Cynthia as well, when she was at the property, said that that would be the best remedy, but obviously, Wendy would have to agree to that.
Well, I could understand Wendy's, look that this was a farm field, and even though it's not currently being farmed, you still have residual things in the soil which will leach down and affect our pond. So I could understand, looking at it from that point of view, but I also understand that you have a serious problem there. Because I remember when this came up several years ago and there was some discussion about it. And it seems to have gotten worse since then.
I just wonder if there's a more natural solution that would capture the water and allow it to be filtered through plants before it gets to the stream. I mean, I'm not
Right.
our previous person, whose name is, what's his name? Mike Batsuski, might be somebody for you to talk with, or somebody like that who works
Right.
in wetland systems with an eye toward filtering water.
Right. Just so you know, the trench doesn't go all the way to the stream.
Where does it end?
It just goes to a lower part of the ground, so then it would.
What is it? Lawn?
No, it's just the I don't know what you call it when you've between a stone fence and a driveway. It's just trees, scrub, whatever,
So there are existing plants there right now.
Yeah. Some of the
Is-
trees unfortunately have gotten waterlogged and fallen down. So it used to have more trees along that road.
Is that on the right of way, or is that actually on one of the neighbor's property?
Okay, now you're gonna really, I don't know precisely how many inches we have on either side of our driveway.
Okay, so it's that close.
So the driveway is almost acting like a dam, if I'm understanding correctly, and pulling the water.
Yeah.
And that
That's
happens,
what I think.
that happened after you paved, but prior to paving it was gravel, or was it
It
asphalt?
was paved before, but it was in bad shape after 25 years or whatever. So we repaved it. And then part of it collapsed and there was a big hole toward Wendy's property. And they said, oh, when we repaved it, we must have crushed the pipe. But they didn't find a pipe. They did not find a pipe. And they said, well, there should be a pipe. Who would build a driveway like this without a pipe? But as Commissioner Yaga just said, Wendy has the right to say she doesn't want a pipe into her pond. And since we couldn't go up toward the road, the only other place was toward the stream.
And
And
there
the
was no
stream doesn't-
drainage under the driveway leading to the stream previously? Might that have been what they could have crushed? If it was laid
No,
under
it's
the
too far
driveway?
away.
I think if this drainage, the gravel that they put in, if that is an actual French drain, gravel, a pipe leading down to this area before it runs into the stream, and as Lynn mentioned before, possibly making a rain garden there, so it would filter the water before it actually got to the stream. But I think that would be
Um,
something for an engineer to draw up.
Okay, and the term used was French drain?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
So the drain that they installed is on Wendy Murphy's side of the driveway? Am I understanding that? No, it's on Millie Olson's side. Okay.
And
Right.
so when looking at an aerial map of the property, this section's after the bridge going towards the road? Or before the-
Right, you're sort of, you've got it exactly. There's the road. And then toward the bridge, it's about, I'm gonna say 10 feet from the road, the pond starts, and sometimes it goes about 30 feet away, and so we put the pipe in toward the bridge where the stream goes, but on Millie Olson's side.
What pipe?
I'm sorry, the drainage ditch. There's,
Oh, okay.
So does it drop down? So it goes, it's almost like the topography drops down from Gear Mountain and then goes up again at the bridge? Or was I mistaken?
to me, it was flat. So I thought Wendy's idea of going to the town pipe worked, but we had an engineer kind of say, no, it's not steep, but it's enough of an uphill climb that you can't drain the water that way. So there's a slight decline all the way toward the bridge where that goes over the stream. Did I confuse or?
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
So is there always standing water in this ditch?
It's more than a ditch. It's like 20 feet wide at this point and 30 feet long. It's big.
Yeah. I'm not,
Not
an-
always, it waxes and wanes depending on,
Yeah, but
The
this year
season.
was especially wet, so it wouldn't have gone anywhere.
right.
that's a very good point.
I think if I were you, I would revisit my conversation with anybody, engineer or otherwise, with the information that you can't connect to the town pipe and see what else can be done to manage that water in a natural way, because you don't have the option of putting it in a pipe and sending it to Wendy's pond. And see what other options they can come up with, because no one on the commission can tell you what to do or even really has the expertise
Okay.
to put the plan together for you.
Is this gravel ditch functioning now to move that water out of that area?
It reduces it enough so it doesn't go over the driveway. Hey,
mean,
Wendy, did you want to speak up?
Yeah, I just thought I would clarify one point. The actual right of way was 25 feet. 10 feet for the driveway, for the paved driveway, 10 feet for Olson on one side and 15 feet on our side. And those were the original drawings that were presented to us. And as far as I know, they were observed. That driveway goes back to West Wyrick when he put it in. I certainly recognize the problem there, and it's affecting what's left of my stand of trees at that end of the property. It's wet on both sides. And but my theory, and God knows I'm not an engineer, was that if the trench went in the other direction and it went a little bit deeper at the bottom, that it would be a very slow drain, but it would move down to a pipe that goes right under the road and that empties my pond at what would it be, the south side. I don't know that anybody's really looked into that. I mean, we all understand gravity, but I don't think, water flows down the town road, Gear Mountain Road right now, when it's heavy rains. And it does end up in that huge conduit that goes under the road over to the Ben Shetrick property. It's all buried all the way.
Yeah, it's just, it sounds like getting the water from this point to there.
If that would have worked, we would have preferred it because it was a much shorter distance.
Yeah, I just don't
We
know that
love that
anybody,
idea, Wendy, but the engineers said it wouldn't work.
well, you're just, well, I don't know that those wonderful guys with the bulldozers are truly engineers. I'm not sure.
No, Wendy, those not the same people.
Okay.
We had a real engineer.
Okay, all
Okay.
right.
I would revisit with a real engineer maybe, or with, and or a combination of
No.
the district folks again, or, Cynthia Rabinowitz, in terms of, with the assumption that you can't make it down toward that town drainage area, what else, if anything, could be done to filter this water so that it doesn't impact the brook, in a negative way.
I would also add that Millie Olson is worried about all this too. She's not disinterested in this. She did stop me the other day when she was walking her dog and say, they've moved my stone wall. I don't know, what that story is.
Yeah, for
But,
us, from the wetland standpoint, we're dealing with water that's there.
No.
And we can't magically make it go away, so we're trying to figure out how to manage the water.
well, I'm all for it. If you can
In
figure
a
out
way that won't impact that brook, or your pond,
Yeah.
and
Or their driveway.
or their driveway, so,
there has always been a big spring right under the edge of my pond, and I know because in the winter it never freezes there. And
Hmm.
that's right on the edge of where, that's why the pond ended up there. We put it in 25 or 30 years ago, and because it was considered by the Department of Agriculture to be a wet place.
yeah.
And you could see that spring any day you go there.
So, again, we're dealing with a wet area
Yeah.
in what is getting to be wetter and wetter climate. And that's not probably gonna go away, so we've got to figure out how to, you've got to figure out how to manage the water in a way that your driveway doesn't wash out, but also in a way that, protects the brook. Ty, if it was to stay exactly as is without anything, what would be the impact? Do you know?
I'm not an engineer and I don't know that it's even, I mean, it's so new that you can't tell that it's even working what they've done. It is a very deep ditch that was dug and filled
How
with
deep?
gravel.
How deep?
Victoria, do you know how deep I mean, it just, by looking at it, it appears to be quite deep.
I don't,
We,
rather than make a guess and then misinform you, I would like to go back and measure it and tell you.
Okay,
I mean, and
The
there,
application says 8 inches to 2 feet deep,
That sounds about right. but
approximately 50 feet long.
Yeah, it has made
it's filled with
improvement
gravel.
right away. I can see that there's a little bit less water all around based on, judgment as to what was there.
so it looks like it might be working.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have been deeper. I mean, a real curtain drain is more like goes below frost line. And that would have made more sense to me, but I don't.
Well,
So may I just review what I think I've been asked to do?
Yes,
Okay, so one, confirm the depth and length of the drain so that you know. Two, confirm sort of the size of the pond, which ebbs and flows depending on, is it August or is it April? And I might as well tell you, how far from the road and how far to the stream, just what Mr. Anthony was asking me about.
yeah, do we have a site map that goes along with this? I did see some photos, but I didn't actually see a site map that shows where this ditch is, where the work is that's been done. I might have missed it. I went through the materials quickly, right, before the meeting, when you sent that email, Ty.
Yeah, so I just took a couple, again, like we discussed, this was put together very last minute, just in an effort to bring it forward to you. I took a couple of the maps that we had in the file and added them in so you'd have some reference, but on those maps, it's not specifically located where this work took place.
So what we're
Um,
gonna need, you're gonna
so-
need to work with Victoria to get her a complete list of items that she needs to have a complete application.
Oh, yeah.
Including a site plan.
including a site plan, and that we should reach out to Cynthia Rabinowitz.
Or I don't want to tell you who to reach out to, but you've already spoken with her. She's familiar with the site. She might recommend somebody else who can look at what you've got and recommend if there are any ways to manage that water, to better manage the water, number one, and number two, to manage it in a way that helps protect.
Filters.
Yeah, filters the water as it's moving toward that brook. It may be with the distance and the amount of time the water's standing and sinking into the ground there, that what you have is fine. In terms of filtration, I don't know what the soils are there. I don't know. But
Right.
that would be the kind of information that you wanna solve. And if this plan, I don't know about the idea of putting dirt in there. I don't know if that is the best plan. I would think enabling native vegetation to grow in, not invasives. Somebody like this guy Mike might be able to.
He was
help.
pretty impressive, wasn't he?
He was. Somebody like him, or he might be able to recommend somebody else. We can't really recommend people for you to
Right,
talk with,
right.
but that's the kind of conversation to have if you can between now and the next meeting, and we'll work with you in terms of if taking the time with you that you need to try to make sure this is the best it can be, or make whatever improvements, figure out what they might be, and then make them.
Okay.
We do understand it's a tough situation.
No, and I don't want to offend Wendy or Millie. Wendy, you're saying we have 15 feet from our edge of the driveway toward your house and 10 toward
Yeah,
Millie?
there's a total of 25 feet. 10 feet is pavement in the drawings that were given me long ago. So that's 10, 15. Wait a minute, must be 10 on my side and 5 on Millie's. That's what it is. 10 on my side. And that was because the original owners asked if they could plant a whole lot of dogwoods along that section. They had no property there. So he said, sure, we can't maintain them, but if you want to put them in, you're more than welcome. And I think most of the dogwoods have died now. They did fine for a while, but so it's
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're saying 25 feet total, including the road, and whatever's not the road is 2/3 yours and 1/3 Millie's.
I'd be glad to give you that drawing,
Okay.
the landscaper's drawing of that whole plan, because they gave it to us. It's very clear. It may even it also talks about that the driveway was raised above the terrain a couple of inches, I think, because they put gravel under the driveway and did stuff, but there's certainly no pipe ever shown there.
Maybe it's just the dirt filled in the gravel, and it, rather than being a natural drain, it became.
A dam. Yeah. A barrier.
Anyway.
So,
There's
but I think that drawing would be helpful to you.
There's
Okay.
a subdivision map filed on the land records with the clerk's office from 1986 that shows how that breakdown,
Is that the same break as what Wendy's?
So, I mean, I have only a portion of that map in front of me, but it shows 20 feet easement onto Wendy's property. And then it shows the paved area, and yeah, probably, like I said, I only have a portion of it. I'd
Mine's
like
a
to
little
see the
bit more
entire map.
recent. Yeah, mine's a little bit more recent, but not much. But it's very specific. I mean, it's schematic, shows all three portions.
Okay.
And the part on Millie's side runs right up to her stone wall. That's the edge of her 10-foot clearance. 5 foot.
We can work together to
Yeah.
get you that information from the land records.
Thank
That'd
you.
be
That
great.
I really appreciate that. I'll get that too.
Uh,
Is there anything else that any of the commissioners would want us to do?
Well, I think Ty can help you as you put together the material, she may identify other things that we need. But
Okay.
Jeff, Ken, Anthony, Paul, anything else? I think
No.
I'd gather together what you can, see if you can get whatever input from outside experts that you can. And we'll gather again and discuss this at the next meeting.
Lynn, if I'm not too pushy, may I just make one more comment?
Sure.
I think the problem, yes, it's Millie's Field, but we also have a whole transformation of that hillside that's been taking place. And now we have lots of hardscape up there, and some of that water is surface water. It's not just coming off Millie's Field, it's coming from everywhere.
Right.
And
Not sure what to do about it.
well, I wish P&Z would alter their requirements for driveways and have pervious driveways. That's one thing they could do.
Sure, I know. I get it. And then I've got, well, that's another story. Yes, I understand. I
Yeah.
do.
Can I get the address of what we're talking about? I'd like to
It's-
take a ride up there and look at it.
Oh, that would be great. It's 111 Gear Mountain Road. So if you're coming from Camps Flat, it's
Yeah.
sort of just before it starts rising steeply. And if you're coming from south, it's just as it sort of bottoms out past the gun place,
Okay, yeah,
just past
Okay.
Millie's.
thank you.
Okay. Ken Dietz, Jeff, Anthony, Paul, anything else for the time being? All right. To
No.
be continued. Thank you for
Thank
being
you
here
all very
tonight.
much. And again, my apologies.
Oh,
We appreciate your time being here tonight, and we'll try to work with you to find a solution.
that
Thank you
makes me
so
very
much.
happy.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna table application 1336-24 to the next regular meeting.
So moved.
Thanks, Ken Dietz. We need a second.
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstention? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna move on then to written comments. And I confess I haven't been back in the file just prior to this meeting, so I haven't read this letter from the Housatonic Railroad Group. Is this the Bruce Bennett
Yes.
group? Okay.
Yes.
Can you either share it or give me a minute? I'll go in and find it so I can read it. Oops. Oopsie.
My wireless headset is dying, so I'm gonna have to switch off and just communicate through the chat.
Okay. You know what? I can't find it.
Got it. Just give me a second. I'll share it. You guys see it okay?
Yep. Thank you. Kent Board of Selectmen and Conservation Commission. You know, we sent them a letter.
You're right.
I'm not sure why are we not included here?
It says, and Kent Board of Selectmen and Conservation Commission and Inland Wetlands.
Oh, so what are they looking for then?
So now, I guess
Oh, thank you.
Railroad Company wasn't willing to really work with them, so now they've gone to the next level.
Okay, so what are they asking?
So in that second to the last paragraph, they say we respectfully request that you would contact Maria Horn and Stephen Harding and express your support for our cause. They go on to say, we'd be happy to draft a letter for you if that is our representative here from towns on this issue. So yeah, I mean, you already did one letter in support. They're asking for further support to the representatives.
So we could simply send a cover email with our letter attached.
Sure.
I can't think of any reason not to do it, but it feels kind of funny to me, for the commission to be contacting elected leaders, but maybe we've done that in the past. I don't know. Is it appropriate? I don't see why not, but it feels a little like it might not be.
Well, what they're looking to do is propose a bill, so it will be similar to the Massachusetts regulations, which I don't see why we shouldn't have it. If they're a little stricter as far as regarding what the Houstonic Railroad Company does.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
I would think certainly it might make sense when we realize that these train tracks go right along many bodies of water,
yeah,
including Hatch Pond and the Housatonic River and others, I'm sure. And that the chemical spraying of things as opposed to mechanical removing them will leach into the ground and get into the water. I think.
Oh, yeah, we actually did already come to that conclusion. My question is more about lobbying an elected official as a
Yeah.
commission.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's an interesting question.
I feel like we may have done that though, in the past, like when Kakiwick would push for legislation. You know, the Connecticut Association of Inland, whatever the heck it's called, Kakiwick. Didn't we sign on to that kind of thing in the past? I guess I would just like to know that it's okay for a town commission to do this. I guess it is, but there's something that I feel like we ought to confirm.
Who would we confirm that with?
Town attorney.
Oh, sure. Okay.
But assuming that we are allowed to do that as a town commission, and again, I can't imagine why we wouldn't be, but I just have this little niggle. And if we could satisfy that, that would be great. Assuming that we are allowed to, do we want to, you know, I can't remember what we said in that original letter. So do we want to send a letter supporting the Massachusetts standards and supporting what this group is pushing for? Is that what you were saying, Paul? To both Maria and
I think I'd like to know just how encompassing those other regulations are, but I see the need for us to have a stronger regulation.
we could say that we don't have to go word for every part of regulations that we haven't read. We could say stronger protection along the lines of the Massachusetts regulations.
Right.
We could say something like that. And then include our original support letter that we sent, you know, attach our original support letter. Do we need to vote on this since it's consistent with our previous position, but we just want to confirm that we are allowed to do this? Ty, do we need to vote on this? Or just achieve a consensus that we want to do it? Is there anybody who's opposed to doing it? Doesn't sound like it.
I think it's an interesting one. In the previous case we just discussed, we all kind of agreed that we couldn't tell the property owner what to do with the water, that they had to find the solution.
Well,
right?
no, what,
This is-
no, what we were saying, what I was saying was we can't tell her who to talk to. We can't recommend one consultant over another, for example.
Right, right, but it's also it's her job to bring a solution to us that we agree with.
That's correct.
Right. The railroad, in this case, the railroad company is not bringing a solution for the land that's next to the tracks in the middle of nowhere that nobody else is looking at. So therefore, it's my theory that this sort of does fall sort of under a mandate. And I think it's interesting that the North Canaan inland wetland is signed on for this. I don't know if we know anybody on that board, but they may have asked the same questions about whether,
I doubt it.
you know, okay, whether it's within I mean, I'm in favor of it myself personally, but I agree with you that it is an interesting question. Is this what we're supposed to do? But I would counter that by saying, if we don't, who will?
Well, the Board of Selectmen, I would think,
Yeah,
representing the town. But have they got anybody signing on to this all the other organizations that they list, we are part of that
Right.
group. And
Yep.
we have already expressed our support for what they're trying to do and our support for a common sense approach to, pesticide use. It doesn't look like anybody else has agreed to write a letter to Maria Horn or Stephen Harding. That doesn't mean they haven't, but
Right. I mean, I think this letter went out to everybody who was initially involved and initially wrote their letter of support. So, we're all receiving it at the same time. I don't know if anybody else has signed on yet or not. And truly, this just came, received it this morning. So,
I would just ask the town attorney if do we have the right to write letters on behalf of things we're concerned about to our elected officials? Especially something that the region and other wetland commissions have also voiced their support, for.
okay, so I'll reach out to Attorney Ziska on that and then circle back with you if he feels like there's no issue with going forward and doing such a letter, then I'll put something together and remind you of the letter. I'll dig out the letter that you previously sent, maybe to send it off to Lynn so she has a moment to take a look at it before any action is taken, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, and then if we're gonna draft a cover email,
Well, do we really need to do that?
maybe not.
Getting right down near the second to last paragraph, they'll keep us informed of progress. They're going forward with this regardless.
Mhm.
They're just looking for us to
Contact
give
Maria
more
Horn and
verbal
Stephen Harding.
support.
Maria Horn and Stephen Harding.
right.
Right.
If we've already gotten on board with this, I think we've
Yeah.
expressed our support for that.
Let's take a look at that letter. Well, they can't submit that. Well, they could actually submit that letter on our behalf, but maybe they're wanting us to get more actively involved. And that just gets back to my question. What does that look like? What can we do? And I wonder if our Board of Selectmen are gonna do anything. It might be good to know that. And is the Conservation Commission gonna do anything? It might be good to know that. Maybe we do a united, email from the Board of Selectmen or from the first selectman that we all sign on to.
That sounds,
So it sounds like we're willing to take some action, but we want to make sure the action that we take is appropriate, right? That's what it sounds like.
I got it.
that's what I would say.
Anthony, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to
Ken
find the-
Johnson?
This is all over my head.
Ken Dietz, are you still with us? I'm looking on the chat, but I don't see you. Uh-oh.
He's still here.
Ken Johnson, I'm sorry, Ken Dietz, are you okay with that? If you could just
He said he
indicate,
was having trouble with his headset before.
yeah, he said he was gonna communicate via chat. I don't see anything. Okay, well. I know that he
Just
was,
said, I'm replying. And earlier messages were directed at Ty.
Yeah, I'm just looking at those. So he said, if I recall correctly, our letter was in favor of actions which further the protection of the wetlands, areas abutting the rail lines. I don't think it was endorsing one plan or another explicitly. I'd want to consult with the town attorney for Kent regardless of what anyone
else
up
says.
the line may or may not
Yeah.
have done.
I think that's, I agree with that. Okay, that's what we'll do. And whatever we do, if the attorney says that we can reach out directly and that it's appropriate for us to, we'll just reach out directly within the framework of what we've already agreed to in our previous letter. Okay? Does that make sense?
Sounds good to me.
Yes.
Okay. Is Ken Dietz agreeing?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Okay, next, anything else on this? All right, moving on. Verbal, we've got the citation hearing officer recommendation and citation agent recommendation. We have two different people?
Yeah, so the citation, I always assumed that it would be me who's the citation agent. But that is as far as the ordinance goes, the first selectman has to appoint that person. So that would be up to you guys if you want to make a recommendation as to who you want to appoint as the agent.
What's the difference between the agent and the hearing officer?
The agent is the person who would, work with the commission to issue the citations when violations come up. The hearing officer is the applicant or the owner who receives a citation, or any person who receives a citation. That's their venue to go to appeal their citation. That hearing officer would hear both sides of the story. So they would hear from the agent, and then they would also hear from the owner or the person who did the violation, whether it was a landscaper or whoever. And that hearing officer would be, kind of being the one who would make the decision whether the citation stands or not.
Okay, so can the first selectman appoint you?
Yeah, I reached out to the first selectman and reminded him that these appointments needed to be made. He said, he would take recommendations from the commission if you had any. So that's where we're at right now. I think we talked more about, the hearing officer, because it was always just, in my mind at least, always just kind of assumed that I would be the agent as I am for anything else for you guys. But is that done? Are you like clearing your
Laughing?
throat like you'd like to come
I'm
forward?
sorry. No, I'm agreeing. Now I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, so we could ask the first selectman to appoint you, Ty, as our citation agent.
Yeah, and
And
then
we could give him recommendations for the hearing officer, but it doesn't sound like one of the people that we talked about last month, it sounds like Paul determined is not interested. Thanks,
He said, thank you very much for thinking of him, and say hello to everybody, but no. I think Donna would make a great
yeah,
person for that
it can't
position.
it can't be an employee
I
of the
know.
town, unfortunately, because I would 100% agree. But
We did talk about it. We did, but
you had,
I would have to retire yet again. So not ready to do that yet.
Okay. And there were a couple of other names on that list. I just, I don't remember who they were. Donna, do you know of anybody else in town that you think would be good before you disappear?
I had recommended Jesse Klingenbiel. I thought that he might, only because he's so involved with the Houstonic River Commission, that he understands, what needs to be done. I don't know if it would be something that he would like to take on. I'm not sure, but he would be somebody that I would recommend. I can't think of anybody else.
I like Jesse. I think he'd be fair,
That's what I thought.
but definitely, on the side of wetlands.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Because of the background that he does have. He's certainly used to dealing with applicants and, that kind of that wouldn't be something that would be unusual for him. So I think he would know how to handle the situation. I guess it's just really whether or not he would do it.
And is Mike Benjamin still working for the town, the Kent Land Trust? So that might be a weird position for him to be in. Yeah. Jeff, do you know of anybody else? Does anybody else have any other ideas? Jeff?
No, I'm thinking, I don't know if Mike is still really with the land trust. I know he was working at Kent School full time, and I know he does some volunteer work with them, I think. But I don't know if he's in a paid spot. I'll ask him.
Okay. That'd be great. And does somebody want to reach out? Well, I
I'll
guess.
ask Jesse too.
Okay.
I live between Mike and Jesse at school here.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. That'd be great. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jeff.
Yeah.
And then maybe just circle back to Ty and she can circle back to the first selectman and let us know.
okay. I'm
Are
sure
they-
they're both gonna have questions.
Yeah,
This
well,
is for the hearing officer position, correct?
yeah, it's a, is it a paid position or an unpaid? It's unpaid. And
Is the-
it only comes around if we issue a citation and somebody wants to appeal that citation. And are there
Right.
criteria within which they have to abide in the statute? Maybe you should send Jeff, the thing that got passed.
The
Oh,
ordinance. Yep,
I have it. I believe
Oh,
I'm
okay.
looking at that. The
Okay,
proposed inland wetlands watercourse citation ordinance. Yeah,
yeah,
they're just gonna ask me what it really involves, and it could involve somebody getting angry with them if they make it, if they yield, if they do not agree with them.
right.
It's an interesting position to be put in.
It is. It is, especially in this day and age.
But I think they both know the commission and how it works, and that it's a thorough commission that's not looking to be unnecessarily brutal on somebody. Just follow the rules that we have established in the town and you'll be fine.
That's
So,
true.
I think they'll understand that, and
and truly, in my experience, it never, I mean, it happened. I worked for Roxbury 11 years and it only happened once that anything came before the hearing officer. And they had a former chairman of their wetlands commission was serving as that position, and it went very smoothly because he knew all about the regulations and just understood, so as long as you have somebody who has a good understanding of, what's required, then it really doesn't need to be contentious. It's about following the it's not personal.
Yeah,
right.
okay. Well, I appreciate that, Jeff. That would be great if you reached out. I'm feeling, I don't know, dumb. I can't think of anybody else that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Certainly.
And Anthony, if you have any ideas, or Ken Johnson, okay, or Ken Dietz. Okay, well, let's go with those two options and see where we end up. All right, anything else? And thank you again, Jeff. Anything else to come before the commission, or anything else anybody else wants to talk about? Okay, then I say we need a motion to adjourn.
So
Anybody?
moved.
We're having so much fun.
Everybody's having so much fun.
Thanks, Paul. We need a second. We need a second.
Everybody.
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, hearing none, motion passes. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thank you.
This felt like a chug through the evening, but thanks a lot. See you next
All
time.
Good night.
Good
Have a
night.
good
Good night, all.
Bye.
Bye.